Welcome to this video on Buddhism's three jewels: the Buddha, the one who teaches the truth; the Dharma, the truth that sets us free; and the Sangha, the community of those who walk the path to freedom together. If you'd like to join future live teachings and meditations on Insight Timer, which are always free, you're welcome to do that. You can find a link to my profile there below. So the talk is about Buddhism's three jewels: the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. And the reason I think this is such an important topic is that for those of us who are like practicing Buddhists, one of the aspects of, I guess you could say, being Buddhist or taking on the Buddhist path as a way of training is that we, at least traditionally, we recite this refuge verse every day. I go for refuge to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. So these three things, the three jewels in Buddhism, I would say for a practicing Buddhist they're like our orientation point. They're like a compass that points us toward what is most real, what is most true, honestly, what's most inspiring, so that we don't lose our way. So in talking about the three jewels today, what I really want to do is talk about two aspects of each of the three jewels, but I also want to talk about how they really are not meant to be something that we like worship so much as something that can help keep us oriented in the right direction. And especially if we're talking about the first jewel, the Buddha, it's really meant to be like an external reflection of our own internal true nature. So, having said that, let's jump into this topic of the three jewels in Buddhism. Please feel free to drop your questions in the chat and I will answer them if I can. Or for those who are watching later on YouTube, which I will post it to, if you have a question, feel free to drop it in the comments. And again, as soon as I'm able to, I will reply to it. So I want to talk first about the first jewel, the Buddha. And this jewel obviously refers to an external person, to the historical Buddha, Shakyamuni Buddha, who lived about 2,500 years ago. There's not a lot of information about the historical Buddha, about his life. We do have a lot of teachings that he left that were memorized and then written down about 500 years after the time of the Buddha. And the earliest traditions of Buddhism really think of the Buddha as someone who was born kind of like, I don't want to say an ordinary person, because each of us has Buddha nature, like we all have the capacity to wake up, but he's someone who was born not enlightened or not awakened, and then woke up to the truth of reality. And I should just say, according to even like the oldest schools of the Buddhist tradition, they think of this Buddha who came 2,500 years ago as just one in a series of Buddhas. So the idea is that like the Dharma itself, what the Buddhas teach, eventually becomes obsolete. Eventually there's no one left who remembers it or who can practice correctly. So it's time for the next Buddha to come and teach and sort of like renew the Dharma. So the idea is that our current Buddha, the Buddha we know of and think of as the historical Buddha, first made the aspiration to become enlightened when the previous Buddha, oh, hello, Pat, I'm so glad you're here. This is basically all inspired by you. So the previous Buddha, whose name I don't remember right now, but the previous Buddha was the teacher of our current Buddha. And in that lifetime, the person who became Prince Siddhartha, who became the Buddha, he made the aspiration that when this Dharma has vanished from the world, may I be born and may I sort of teach it and bring it back into existence again. So that's like the deep history of Buddha Shakyamuni. And the idea is that he was born into his last lifetime, you could say, with this aspiration, with a lot of merit. He had already done so much practice in his previous lives, but he was basically an ordinary person. And so I think we all probably know the story of the Buddha being raised in a pleasure palace, and his parents trying not to expose him. His mother supposedly dies not long after he's born, but his father tries to keep him from ever experiencing any suffering. And then eventually he leaves that lifetime. He does all this ascetic practice, and basically according to the Buddhist story, he kind of forms a new type of meditation that's now the foundation for Buddhist meditation, and that allows him to wake up to the nature of reality, becoming the Buddha. Buddha just means someone who's awakened. So in the external sense, that's the first jewel, the Buddha. And the reason that we bow down to the Buddha, there's a couple of aspects to this. So first of all, there's the idea that the Buddha Shakyamuni, is the one who taught the path. So without him, we wouldn't have the Dharma. So when we bow down to an image of the Buddha, like I have on my little shrine behind me, several different images of Buddhas, or we can even imagine, an image of the Buddha and bow down to it. And when we do that, we're paying our respect to the person who taught the Dharma in the first place, who made this path available to all of us. So that's one aspect of what it means to kind of bow down to the Buddha, or what the Buddha is as one of the three jewels. There's another aspect too, though, which is that the Buddha is not just this historical figure. Obviously, he's a really important person to Buddhism, but the reason that we're still bowing down to this figure, thousands of years later, is that each of us also has the potential to wake up. So when we talk about the Buddha, it's just, I think, helpful and important to know that there's that external Buddha that we're bowing down to, but each of us also has the internal Buddha of our Buddha nature. And we're bowing to that too. There's actually a prayer in the Tibetan tradition where you bow to yourself as the future Buddha, because sooner or later we're all going to become fully awakened. So you're bowing not just to sort of a historical figure from the past, but also to your own innate potential in the future that will someday be fully realized. So those are a couple of aspects of the Buddha as one of the three jewels, the jewel of the Buddha. It's the external Buddha. We have respect, we have reverence for the Buddha because he kind of blazed this trail that now we all get to follow. We don't have to discover it for ourselves. But I think an even more important role that the Buddha plays is someone who reflects back to us. That that's us too. That sooner or later we will wake up to our own nature, the nature of reality. From a Buddhist perspective, at least from a Mahayana Buddhist perspective, it's almost sort of inevitable that sooner or later, given countless lifetimes, we're all going to wake up. Our goal is just to wake up in as few lifetimes as possible so we can stop suffering and just kind of, experience the ongoing complete bliss of nirvana or Buddhahood. Pat says we also have gratitude and appreciation of the Buddha. Yes, exactly. So these are all really important aspects of why we consider the Buddha to be one of the three jewels. The historical Buddha, our own inner Buddha. In the Tibetan teachings, there's also the Lama who gives us the teachings, that came to us through the Buddha. So they're a little bit included in this jewel of the Buddha, or sometimes people take refuge in the Guru, the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. But that's really mostly just in Tibetan Buddhism. So I want to keep this more applicable to all schools of Buddhism. So that's the first jewel, the Buddha, the one who teaches us the Dharma, the one who kind of opened up this path so that all of us for thousands of years to come have a teaching to follow. We don't have to discover this for ourselves. The second jewel, and sometimes people talk about this actually as the most important jewel, is the jewel of the Dharma. What does that mean? So first of all, just the word Dharma itself can be translated as the truth, It can be translated as the path, like with a capital P, the path to freedom and awakening. It has other translations also, like in a Hindu context, it could mean your duties in this lifetime, but we're just talking about Buddhism here. So when we talk about the Dharma as one of the three jewels, again, there's two aspects to it. And this is kind of coming from the Tibetan tradition, but I think it's applicable to all the traditions. So the first aspect is just the actual Dharma, like the books, the teachings, what's been handed down to us from the time of the Buddha and from other awakened beings. So all of that is the Dharma. So I think you can see, oh, maybe y'all can't on the live stream. You can see like on my shrine, the thing sort of in the middle on the top shelf is actually a text. So that's a representation of the gem of the Dharma. Maybe I can set it. No, I was hoping I could shift the view around. So the Dharma, the teachings that have come down to us, the lineages that keep those teachings alive are so important. And again, it goes back to our own practice. They're so important because without them, we wouldn't have a path. We wouldn't have a map. Like we could walk the territory, but you can only imagine how long it would take to figure out how to get from where you are to some really far off place if you have no Google Maps, no maps at all, no satellite images. You just know that it's kind of in a certain direction and you start going and you have to ask everybody you meet, hey, where's this thing? It would take forever. So the part of the reason that the Dharma is so revered is that it's like that map. It shows us where to go. I guess this is a good transition point into the second part, or the second aspect of the Dharma, which again points back to ourselves, which is the Dharma that we've realized. So there's the Dharma that exists like outside in books, in teachings that we receive, but there's also the Dharma that we've realized for ourselves. Micah says, I love hearing your perspective of the Buddha. Thank you. I also love hearing other people talk about it, especially from other traditions, because it just helps me appreciate, even something as basic as like, who was the Buddha? Why do we still care? It helps me appreciate it in a new way. So thank you, Micah. Yeah, Micah says, it helps me to understand this information more clearly in my mind. Yes, totally. Totally. Maggie says, me too. Awesome. I'm glad to hear that. So with the internalized Dharma, or the Dharma of realization, this is something where we've heard the Dharma and now we've put it into practice. And we've had our own realization of it. And to me, I really love the description of the Dharma as having this aspect, not just being outside ourselves, but there's also what we've like taken in. One of my teachers likes to say, mix the Dharma with your mind. And to me, it just suggests, taking something from the outside and letting it simmer and kind of digest until it becomes part of us. So this Dharma of realization might be, sitting in meditation, maybe you've been reflecting on emptiness, and it finally kind of cracks open and you get it, like it's a flow. Everything is changing. Everything is, being born, growing, and then dissolving. Like that's how life flows. So that would be the Dharma of realization. These moments that we have, sometimes in meditation, honestly, these moments for me are probably most frequent when I'm on retreat, but I'm in between sessions. So I've been, resting my mind in something, and then I go out and I take a swim in the lake, or I'm, just surrounded by nature, and you suddenly have like a cracking open of your mind. I think this is so important because it keeps bringing it back to us. It's not enough to kind of pay homage to something external. It's really helpful for our own practice to realize that at the end of the day, this is about what we're realizing with our own heart, our own mind, our own being. It's about who we're becoming. So for those of us, I'm going to talk about the Sangha in just a moment, but that jewel is a little bit different. So I want to just, pause and reflect on the jewels of the Buddha and the Dharma for a second here. So those of us who grew up like I did in a Christian group, or probably any other form of monotheistic religion, like Judaism or Islam, or, there's many different forms of monotheisms, but you might think of bowing down the way we would do as Buddhists when we take refuge in the three jewels. You might think of that as like a form of worship, or, the created paying homage to their creator, and there's like a very distinct gap between this like divine being and ourselves. Hi, hello Karen, welcome, welcome. And I think it's really important to notice that in Buddhism, when we take refuge or when we pay homage to the Buddha and the Dharma, we're not paying homage to something that is fundamentally different from ourselves. We're paying homage to the teacher who taught the Dharma. We're paying homage to the teachings that show us the way. But both of those would be irrelevant to us if we couldn't follow that path to the very end, if we couldn't also wake up ourselves. So I think that's really important. I think for me, when I was first like exploring Buddhism and discovering its beliefs and teachings, I was really coming at it from like still a Christian perspective, not even just Christian, but like fundamentalist Christian. That's what I was raised in. And from that perspective, I was almost like allergic to anything religious sounding, So like bowing down to the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, I was like, I don't know. I'm just going to wait and see how I feel about that. Any of these ways of like showing reverence or gratitude to the Buddha just kind of put me off a little bit. So I think it's just super, super important to know that we're not worshiping something else. Pat says the Buddha is embodied in the Dharma. Exactly. There's a lot of different ways of talking about this. Buddhists talk about body, speech, and mind. So, like, the body of the Buddha is the Sangha, the speech of the Buddha is the Dharma, the mind of the Buddha is the Buddha. There's a lot of ways of understanding all three of these as being really related to each other. And depending on what tradition you follow, they'll have a different way of explaining it. But yeah, to say basically the Buddha is embodied in the Dharma, it's like the role of the Buddha was to teach, was to offer us the Dharma. And now, leading on to the third jewel, we have what's called the Sangha, or the community, that is our third refuge. It's the third jewel of Buddhism. And again, there's a couple of different ways of understanding the Sangha. So the first way, and the more traditional way, would be either that it's referring to what's sometimes called like the noble Sangha, or people who have attained enlightenment. So that's one way of understanding the Sangha. Another way of understanding the Sangha that when I spent time in Thailand is the way they spoke about it, is understanding the Sangha as people who are ordained. So monks and nuns, according to this view, would constitute the Sangha. There's a third way of using the term Sangha, though, which is what I want to focus on now, which is that the Sangha is the community of those walking the path together. And I think the reason that that's such a powerful way of understanding the Sangha, to me, is that I think often in Western communities in particular, we tend to think of Dharma practice as something we are supposed to do alone. That like we sit on our meditation cushions and we do our practice, and it's really something that we do. Sometimes it even feels like it's something we do for ourselves. And obviously, from a Tibetan perspective, I think from all Buddhist perspectives, anytime we practice, it's really for the benefit of everybody. And in a traditional community, no one had to say, we're all in this together, all of us practicing, because it was understood. Buddhism grew up in Asian cultures where people understood their deep connections to each other in a way that, speaking as an American from the 21st century, I don't think people in my culture feel that way anymore. We think of John Wayne. And, one of the things that my teacher, Harvey Aronson from Dawn Mountain, has really emphasized again and again, and I appreciate so much his emphasis on it, is that we need Sangha in the way that we need Buddha and Dharma. And I think it's very easy to see why we need the Buddha and the Dharma, like why we would take refuge in those. And, for those of us who are maybe like a little bit antisocial or kind of introverted or, going and being around other humans is not necessarily our thing, hearing like the Sangha is the third jewel, it might be a little bit surprising. Or we might want to say, okay, but maybe the Sangha just means, the community of monks and nuns, like the professionals who are out there really holding up the tradition to the highest standard. I think it's really powerful to think about Sangha as including all of us. That's one thing I really appreciate actually about the people in the various circles on Insight Timer. It's like social media, but social media meets Sangha. They just tend to be really kind and supportive. And, if you're new and you want a sense of Sangha, I highly recommend finding a circle that you're interested in joining on Insight Timer. You're always welcome to join the circle that I facilitate. It's called Buddhist Wisdom, Modern Life, but there's lots of other wonderful circles too. So coming back to the idea of Sangha, it's hard to explain, but it is true that when you're in a community, when you have a group of friends that you practice with, or when you're in a Sangha, a proper Sangha, whether it's Buddhist or a yoga community, whatever it might be. I feel like for me, for a while, my Kung Fu school was my Sangha. But when you're in a group like that, when one person practices, it benefits everyone. And when people share their practice together, share their hardships together, share their celebrations and practice together, it's like it opens up for everyone else in that group what's possible, or that you're not alone when you're struggling. And, I just think it's like an act of generosity if you're in a group like that to share your insights, but also to share the times when you feel like you're not doing it right or you're struggling, so that people know, I'm not the only one having a hard time finding time to meditate, or maybe just this pandemic is really wearing on me and I thought I could cure it with meditation, but I can't. So personally, I feel like the Sangha has played a really important role in my life. And I think it's super important, and especially now, as a lot of us in a lot of parts of the world are maybe not, we might not have the option of connecting with people in person. It's super important to find ways to connect with each other online or support each other. Or if you live with other people, if there's any kind of contemplative practice you can kind of weave into your life together, then you have a built-in Sangha. So that's, oh my goodness, we're just almost out of time again. This goes by so fast. That's what I wanted to say about the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. So if you have any questions, please post them. I think there's a bit of a delay, but I'll see them before this live stream ends and I can respond. And this leads me to the last thing that I wanted to talk about, which is, according to the early Buddhist tradition, one of the last things that the Buddha said before he died, one of the last instructions that he gave to his followers. And he said, basically, be a refuge to yourselves. I've given you the teachings, you have to walk it. I'm going to die, but you have everything you need to keep going. And I just want to say that, again, to kind of underscore the idea that we're not supposed to be giving all of our agency over to the Buddha or worshiping the Buddha and hoping that somehow, blessings will come to us from that. There's tremendous blessings in this tradition, but at the end of the day, it's our own practice that helps us move along the path. And in the Buddhist tradition, I'm saying this also, for people who, like me, at one time in my life, maybe are feeling a little bit allergic to the religious aspect of Buddhism. I just want to say this is not about blind faith. It's not about the Buddha is better than me. Obviously, the Buddha, woke up to the nature of reality. We haven't done it yet. So there's a respect there, but there's not a difference in category. We can do it too.